So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News and Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time within 30 minutes. The idea is that you get to cover your current affairs on a daily basis, but you don't have to spend your entire day just reading the newspaper. So, we'll be covering this day's current affairs in a short span of time so that you are left with the rest of the day for covering other parts of your UPSC syllabus. Now, just after watching this lecture, you need to revise this lecture as well because revision helps in consolidating these current affairs in your memory. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. And you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us. And these notes shall be shared on our Telegram channel. Now, where can you find our Telegram channel? Well, just below this video in the comment section, you'll find a link. All you have to do is just click on that link. It'll take you to our Telegram channel, and from there you can download the notes for this lecture. Okay. All right. Now let's begin today's discussion. But first, let's take a look at today's topics. Okay, the list of topics for today's lecture. Number one, as you know, it was Republic Day yesterday or on 26th of January, and on the eve of Republic Day, many awards are announced by the government, which are awarded by the president. Okay, so one such award is a civilian award called Padma Awards. It includes Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Shri. So we'll talk about this. Then recently, Donald Trump, America's president, has asked OPEC countries, oil organization for petroleum exporting countries, okay, OPEC countries to cut the prices of crude oil because high prices of crude oil is actually earning a lot of revenue to Russia, which is using that revenue for fighting the war in Ukraine. Okay, so what is this issue? What are OPEC countries? We'll talk about this. Then recently, RBI Ombudsman Scheme saw a lot of complaints against the banking sector. So what is RBI Ombudsman Scheme? We'll talk about this. Then recently a study found that Greenland's crystal clear lakes have started browning, and this is a very bad news for the entire planet. Why? We'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about fingerprints and how fingerprints help in solving crime and what is the legal aspect to all of this. Okay, this news item became famous because of the stabbing of famous Bollywood actor Saif Ali Khan and the investigation related to that crime. Okay, so we'll be talking about all these 5 issues. Let's discuss them one by one, starting with topic number 1, which is Padma Awards. Okay. Alright. So on Republic Day, the president announces several awards, including Gallantry Awards, which are given to armed forces for exceptional services. Perhaps the best known among the all categories is the highest honors among the civilian awards. Okay. So some awards are given to civilians, some awards are given to armed forces, police, paramilitary forces. Okay. So among the civilians, the highest honor that can be bestowed upon anyone is Bharat Ratna. After that are Padma Awards. So there are 3 categories of Padma Awards: Padma Vibhushan, which is second highest civilian award after Bharat Ratna, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Shri. Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Shri. Okay, these are medals. Now, first, let's talk about Padma Awards. Then we'll talk about all sorts of awards given by President during Republic Day and Independence Day. Okay, this is basic GK, basic trivia, and some MCQs might be asked about them or related to them. Very easy trivia based MCQs in your prelims. So we'll cover this. Okay. So first of all, what are these Padma Awards? So one is Padma Vibhushan, the highest, awarded for exceptional and distinguished service, Padma Bhushan for distinguished service of higher order, and Padma Shri for distinguished service in any field. And these fields range from art to science to social service. Musicians get this award. Okay, artists get this award. Social servants get this award. Okay, social workers. Any person working in any field, with the exception of government employees, doctors, and scientists, are eligible for the award. Okay, so except government employees, all can receive this award. Okay, government employees are barred from receiving Padma Awards, except doctors and scientists. So if there are doctors and scientists working with the government as government employees, they can receive this award. But apart from doctors and scientists, no government employee can receive Padma Awards. Remember this fact. Now, the nomination process is open to public. People can nominate who they want to give Padma Awards, but the winners are decided by a Padma Awards committee. Okay. Then we'll talk about the highest civilian honor, that is Bharat Ratna. So, Bharat Ratna is India's highest and most prestigious civilian honor awarded for exceptional service in the field of art, literature, science, or public service. Now, nominations for this award are submitted by Prime Minister, and in 1 year, maximum of 3 people can receive Bharat Ratna. So far, from 1947 to 2024, 53 people have received Bharat Ratna. Okay, so remember, Padma Awards can be nominated, or the candidates for Padma Awards can be nominated by public, but in Bharat Ratna, only Prime Minister recommends the nominees for these awards. Okay, then 3 people or 2 people or one, they are chosen from this list of nominees. Okay, now these are civilian honors. Okay, what about Gallantry Awards? Okay, so Gallantry Awards are awarded to basically armed forces personnel. Okay, Army, Air Force, Navy. So there are Gallantry Awards for armed forces for the bravery shown by them during a conflict situation, and there are Gallantry Awards for civilians also. Those are called civilian Gallantry Awards. Over here, we are talking about Gallantry Awards for armed forces. Okay, so there are some awards given only during wartime. You must have heard about Paramveer Chakra, Mahavir Chakra, Veer Chakra. These are only given during wartime when India is engaged in a war. Then, during peacetime, if any armed forces personnel showcases some bravery or an act of bravery, they receive Ashok Chakra, Kirti Chakra, Shaurya Chakra. Okay. Now, there are some gallantry awards for the police as well. Okay. President's Medal for Gallantry and Police Medal for Gallantry. Alright. Then there are Civilian Gallantry Awards. Okay. These are known as Jeevan Raksha Padak Awards. These are given to civilians if they have shown act of bravery, saved someone's life or anything. Okay. Now these awards, like Padma Awards, have 3 categories: Sarvottam Jeevan Rakshak Padak, the highest; Uttam Jeevan Rakshak Padak, and Jeevan Rakshak Padak. Okay. Now these awards can be awarded posthumously also. That means if someone is dead and after their death we recognize their sacrifice, then also after their death this award can be awarded. Then there are some service medals which are given to, well, armed forces, police, paramilitary. So the famous ones are President's Medal for Distinguished Services, generally given to police and paramilitary forces; Medal for Meritorious Service. Okay, they are announced on Republic Day and Independence Day. All right, one more thing I wanted to share with you. You know, before 1970s, 1980s, basically 1978, whoever got Padma Shri award could use the term Padma Shri as a prefix to their name. Okay, so let's suppose Sachin Tendulkar received this award. Okay, so Sachin Tendulkar can use it as a prefix, so he would be called Padma Shri Sachin Tendulkar. Okay, Padma Shri Bismillah Khan. Okay, so on and so forth. Clear? But after 1980, it was said that Padma Shri award can be awarded, but it cannot be officially used as a prefix or suffix to your name. You have to remember this. The Constitution, Article 18 of our Constitution, says abolition of titles. Okay? So in our country, only medical and military titles are allowed. So you can say Colonel Rajveer Singh, or you can say Dr. Rajveer Singh. But apart from medical and other titles, like academic titles, you cannot use other titles. Okay. Article 18 of our Constitution says titles cannot be used, hereditary titles cannot be used. So they abolish titles. So, in pursuit of Article 18, which abolishes titles except military or academic, okay, you can be awarded Padma Shri, but you cannot use it as a prefix to your name. All right, just remember this fact. though we will cover this fact in more detail when we'll be covering polity. Okay, all right. Now let's move on to our next news item, which is Trump asks OPEC to cut prices. So US President Donald Trump has asked Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries to cut prices of oil, arguing that it would stop the Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, he made a similar claim at the annual World Economic Forum summit at Davos, Switzerland. Now, what is the situation? Look, Donald Trump has asked OPEC countries, oil producing countries, and oil exporting countries to cut the prices of crude oil. The reason he's saying so is because Russia exports a lot of crude oil, okay, and earns a lot of revenue. Now, Russia is using that revenue to finance its war against Ukraine. So, Donald Trump says that if you guys will reduce the price of crude oil, the revenue earned by Russia through crude oil would also decline, and Russia won't be able to finance its war in Ukraine and would go for a peace deal with Ukraine. So, the war can get stopped by this action. Okay, now important for you is to understand what is OPEC. Okay, so about OPEC. So basically, OPEC is a permanent intergovernmental organization. And this organization was started in 1960 by Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. All five of these were major oil producing countries. And they came together so as to regulate supply of crude oil all over the world and price. Okay, these people came together and formed a cartel. In a sense, they would manipulate price of crude oil because they are the major producers of crude oil. So they came together to manage supply and prices of crude oil. Okay, now like a cartel, they would decide through their own methods and by talking to each other what should be the price of crude oil, and since they are the leading producers, they can dictate their terms. Now, this organization was started by 5 countries in 1960 at the end of Baghdad Conference. Today it has 12 members. And they take their decisions with respect to supply, how much each country would produce. Okay, so each country is allocated a quota, how much each country would produce, and they also decide upon a price, and then each and every member should sell at that price. Okay, so this is a grouping. So aim is to manage the supply of oil in an effort to set the price of oil in the world. Its headquarters are in Vienna, Austria, and it has a total membership of 12 countries. The thing is that apart from these 12 countries, there are 10 other countries who are major oil producing countries, but they are not officially members of OPEC. So these 10 extra countries who export crude oil also wanted to coordinate with OPEC. So these 12 OPEC countries plus these 10 countries formed OPEC plus. Okay, so it is a group of 22 oil exporting countries. These extra 12 countries are Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Brunei, Kazakhstan, Russia, Mexico, Malaysia, South Sudan, Sudan. Russia is not there. Just remember this. Okay, Mexico, Malaysia, Sudan, South Sudan, Oman. Okay, these nations aim to work together on adjusting crude oil production. Now, do you know that Russia produces a lot of crude oil? USA produces a lot of crude oil. But both these countries are not members of OPEC or OPEC plus. The reason is they want to take their decisions independently. Okay, they want to take their decisions with respect to production or price independently. Okay, so they are not cooperating with OPEC. Clear? Makes sense? Okay, so this is OPEC plus. Remember, Russia is not part of OPEC plus also. All right. Now let's move on to our next news item, which is RBI Ombudsman Scheme. Okay, so basically what is an ombudsman? Who is an ombudsman? Ombudsman is a person who receives complaints related to any organization. So if there is an ombudsman called banking ombudsman, then any complaint you have with respect to any bank in India, your complaint with respect to customer service delivery would go to the banking ombudsman, and it is the job of this banking ombudsman to resolve this complaint and give a decision. Okay, so back in the day, there used to be a banking ombudsman, a non-banking finance company ombudsman, a separate ombudsman for that, and an ombudsman for digital payments. Okay, Now in 2021, RBI combined these three ombudsmen and created an integrated ombudsman. This scheme was called RBI's Integrated Ombudsman Scheme. Now recently it was found that this ombudsman received or has seen a staggering rise in complaints again from banking customers. Okay, so the complaints registered by people with RBI Ombudsman Scheme have increased 32.81%. This means that the service delivery by India's banking sector is becoming poor. Okay, this significant increase suggests a decline in customer service standards within the banking sector, highlighting the need for improvement. Now, what is Banking Ombudsman Scheme? So let's talk about this scheme. So RBI's Integrated Ombudsman Scheme is a scheme that helps customers of regulated entities resolve their complaints. Now, what do you mean by regulated entities? Those entities that are regulated by RBI. So that includes banks. Banks are regulated by RBI. NBFCs, non-banking finance companies, are regulated by RBI. Digital payments, okay, digital transactions, or people who handle digital transactions, they are regulated by RBI. So all organizations who are regulated by RBI are called regulated entities. So complaints against them go to this ombudsman. Now it was introduced in 2021 by combining three previous schemes. Okay, the three previous schemes were Banking Ombudsman Scheme of 2006, Ombudsman Scheme for NBFCs 2018, Ombudsman Scheme for Digital Transactions 2019. So all these were combined and an integrated ombudsman was made. Now you need to know about ombudsman. Okay, so basically, who is an ombudsman? A government official who deals with complaints made by ordinary people against public organizations. Okay, now this concept was taken from Sweden, but it was a good concept. That is why, well, this concept was applied in India. Do you know Lokpal, the office of Lokpal that hears complaints against politicians and public officials, is also inspired from Ombudsman Scheme of Sweden. Any which way. If you do not agree with the decision of banking ombudsman, you can appeal against that decision with the executive director of RBI, which is who is in charge of consumer education and protection. Okay, so this is ombudsman scheme. All right. Then we'll move on to our next news item, which is browning of Greenland's lakes. And this is a very sad news item and dangerous news item with respect to the environment. Why? The thing is that Greenland is used to crystal clear, crystal blue lakes. But of late, the lakes have started becoming brown. Now, when these lakes were crystal clear, they were able to absorb atmospheric carbon dioxide and thus helped in fighting against climate change. It somehow contributed in absorbing atmospheric carbon dioxide. That means carbon dioxide in the atmosphere didn't rise beyond a particular level because these lakes were helping in absorbing excess carbon dioxide. But now these lakes are becoming brown. And because of that, their natural role of absorbing carbon dioxide is diminished and they themselves have become carbon emitters. And this is very bad news for climate change. Okay, so let's take a look at the news. More than 7,500 lakes in western Greenland have turned brown, begun emitting carbon, and suffered a drop in water quality due to extreme weather events of 2022. These lakes, which were once crystal blue, provide drinking water to locals, feature rich biodiversity, and sequester. That means absorb atmospheric carbon. And this is a very important service that these lakes provide. Now, how did this situation come about? Why did this happen? Why did Greenland's lakes become brown? The thing is, first of all, Greenland is used to snowfall during autumn months, August to late September. But this time, because of rise in global temperatures, this snowfall converted into rainfall. Okay, so this time around in 2022, basically, instead of snowfall, Greenland received a lot of rainfall during the autumn months. Now, what happened because of that? Because of this rainfall, the water dropped because of rainfall. Okay, the water that was dropped because of this rainfall actually eroded the nearby land. Okay, and this nearby land got eroded, and all the materials of the soil started going down with this surface water, which drained into these lakes. So these lakes now had the nearby organic material from the soil, the organic material from the nearby soil. Now, because they had dust, soil in these lakes started becoming brown. Secondly, because of global warming, permafrost melted. Now, what is permafrost? Well, the upper layer of soil in Arctic region remains permanently frozen. Okay, this is known as permafrost. But this time around, because of rising temperatures, this permafrost melted, and therefore carbon, iron, magnesium, and other elements trapped in that permafrost, they got released and they drained into this lake, and this lake became brown. These elements were washed into the lakes, resulting in their transformation. Okay, so what impact did it have? The organic carbon and other elements washed into the lakes, their physical, chemical, and biological properties changed. Okay, so the properties of lakes changed. Thus, lakes' color, odor, and taste has dramatically altered. As a result, the water quality of these lakes was adversely affected. And the problem is that when these lakes become brown, they block sunlight from entering into deeper layers of water. Okay, because brown color is opaque. Now, if sunlight doesn't reach deeper layers of water, well, there are aquatic plants in these waters known as phytoplanktons. Now, these phytoplanktons provide an essential ecosystem service. What they do is, like all other plants, they perform photosynthesis. And what happens in photosynthesis? Plants basically absorb carbon dioxide and sunlight. In the presence of sunlight, they absorb carbon dioxide and water to produce food. But because there wasn't enough sunlight that reached these phytoplanktons because of browning, well, their carbon dioxide absorption potential or their photosynthesis potential also dropped, which actually was problematic. Thus, these lakes became net emitters of carbon. Okay, this is bad news. All right. And last news item is fingerprints and crime. There are only a few facts related to this news item that you need to know. And because of those few facts, I have included this news item in this lecture. Okay. This was not that important news item as far as civil services are concerned. But there were a few facts which you need to know. They might come in handy in your prelims examination. That's why I have included this news. Now, what was in the news? The confusion over the fingerprints lifted from Bandra residence of actor Saif Ali Khan prompted CM Devendra Fadnavis to ask the Mumbai Police Commissioner to give details. So there was some controversy regarding the fingerprints that were taken from the crime scene, and they didn't match the recent accused. Okay, police has arrested a person. He's being accused of this crime of stabbing Saif Ali Khan, but the fingerprints that were lifted from the crime scene did not match with that person. Okay, so there is a controversy. Clear? That was in the news. But you need to know about fingerprints. Okay, so what are these? So basically, there is a law in our country called Identification of Prisoners Act. Now look, government cannot store your fingerprints into their database because that would be a violation of right to privacy. Okay, without your consent, government cannot store your fingerprints somewhere else. But there are some exceptions to it. If a person, okay, if a person is accused in a case which carries a punishment of more than 1 year, then their fingerprint would be taken and it can be stored in a database. Okay, so famous criminals or habitual criminals, their fingerprints are taken and they can be stored. Now what government does is, whenever there is a crime, they lift fingerprints from the crime scene and they try to match those fingerprints in the database to identify whether the to actually identify the criminal, basically. Clear? Now, how are fingerprints matched? Just remember this term. So, Henry classification system. It's a very famous classification system which says that if 10 points match between two fingerprints, then the fingerprint is a match. Okay, so this is a system through which fingerprints are matched. You just have to remember its name, because a question might be asked in the prelims examination. An MCQ might be asked where where they will ask you which system is used to match fingerprints. Okay, so it's Henry classification system. That's it. I just wanted you to be aware of Identification of Prisoners Act and Henry classification system. That's it. That's why I included this news item. Otherwise, this news item is unimportant. Okay. And with that, we conclude today's current affairs. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And I hope it added value to your preparation. But it would add more value if you revise this lecture as well. So please do not forget to revise this lecture. And I will see you next time with more stuff. Thank you.